Holy hell. More people are using Windows XP than Windows 8 and 8.1 combined. Now that's saying something. Hi, Chibi Neko here, ready to spill some tea on some tech. It is February, so I figured that, let me take a look at the OS market share, because to my pleasant surprise, Linux is at 4.02%. Now, I know it doesn't seem like much, but the last time I checked this, I believe it was 3.14. Again, it was a big number at the time, but holy moly. Ever since January, it exploded by an entire percent. In fact, according to Zorin OS, which is one of the many distros of Linux, they're now claiming to have 2 million downloads. Now that's downloads, not installs, downloads. But it's growing. It's growing. And I am guessing it's due to the frustration of Microslop. Yes, I'm calling it Microslop because those big boys, they just love it so much. They love the whole Microslop because that's what it is. That's what it is. Anyway. While I was checking the market share, to my pleasant surprise of Linux, there was something else. Not only was the fact that Windows XP is being used more than the previous 8s combined, I noticed something. Windows 11 has actually jumped. I remember because if you look back here in December, Windows 11 and Windows 10 were fairly neck and neck. Windows 11 had 50% of the share, and Windows 10 had 44% of the share. That's huge. That's huge. And Microsoft was getting worried. They were getting concerned because, well, people would rather take the risks of using a end-of-life operating system than switch over to Windows 11. And, well, it's shot up. Actually, put things in more perspective, here's a bar chart. So this is from December 2025 to February 2026, so it's an entire month. Windows 11, boom, up here to 58.19%, and Windows 10 is dropped down to 38.81%. Now, people are probably wondering, hey, like, could the jump in Linux have anything to do with this? The unknown OSs is 15.26. Now, I'm sure Linux is lumped in there somewhere, but these are just operating systems that's not entirely accounted for. This could include other versions of Windows. Mac OS could be a thing. Could people be saying like, oh, Windows 11, oh, I'm going to give that a try. Not on your chance. Not a chance. No, Windows 11's beginning so many complaints, broken updates, black screen of death is a thing now. NVIDIA drivers are broken. They've been asking people to uninstall certain updates with Microslop Windows 11 because it's been breaking their drivers. The frame rates and gaming is going to, it's just been crazy. The AI, everything, it's just, so why would there be a jump in Windows 11 if people were perfectly content a month ago to use an end-of-life operating system? Well, it's because it's installing itself without consent. Story time! A few days ago, one of my best friends sent me a message saying that her father was asking her about his computer, and apparently it was asking about an update and began installing, and she didn't know what was going on. She went to his computer and all she noticed was saying Windows is updating, and okay, she didn't think much of it, so she just let it do its thing. And she told me, like, geez, Neko, like, this was a long time, like 30 minutes, it took forever. And apparently that is what it was doing. It installed Windows 11. And I asked her, like, are you sure about this? Like, did the Windows start menu go to the middle? And she said yes. I'm like, oh shit. It updated on its own. So, and I warned her, like, her dad seemed to be fine at the time because he is the definition of a home user. A home user is just somebody who turns on their computer, opens the web browser, like maybe watch some Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, maybe send an email, a little shopping, nothing too data intensive. But I warned her that the computer is going to be extremely, extremely slow because of the telemetry, the bloat, nothing to do with his hardware. His computer was working just fine with Windows 10. And a few days later, she contacted me. She said, yeah, her dad is getting pretty pissed off. The computer is way, way too slow. So she was wondering if this could be reversed. I said, yes, if it was done within the past 10 days. I gave her the instructions and good. And luckily enough, he was able to click on revert back to Windows 10. And it did go back to 10. If it's still, if it's working at proper speed, I guess I'll find out next day or two, because I did tell her that I can provide some nice, I got a few Linux distros, like nice light ones that can definitely speed up the computer. So yeah, being a home user, not being super high tech or anything, he didn't know how to protect himself from this. Now with my friend's computer, not that long ago, I installed some extra RAM into our tower. I erased it. I did a fresh install of Windows 10. I debloated it. I disabled telemetry, automatic updates, and the computer is working just fine. But most people aren't, the typical user, the home user, don't do that stuff. So unfortunately, he was vulnerable to having an automatic update to Windows 11 because where 10 is at end of life. It can't do automatic updates anymore. So that was, so I knew this had to be what's going on. Is Microslop is saying, fuck this. We want your computer. We want your hardware. So we're going to go in there without your consent. We're going to install Windows 11. And that is the key word, my friends. Hardware. Why would Microslop be so desperate to wiggle its way into your personal space? Well, they've been doing it since, Windows 7. Remember when Windows 7 automatically rolled over to Windows 10? Windows 10 was all about getting your data, telemetry, spying, even, key logging. It was doing all of that, and people were getting frustrated. And of course, we were getting third-party software popping up that can, disable this stuff and automatic updates, me being one of them. But now they're doing it again with Windows 11, and Windows 11 is taking things to a whole new level. Not only are they after your data, they want your hardware. Your hardware, your computer, like even laptops, is not yours anymore. Microslop wants it. So you're probably wondering, how is this the case? Well, it all boils down to TPM 2.0. That is the chip on your computer that Windows 11 requires that you have in order to upgrade to Windows 11, among all the other ridiculous hardware requirements and the unfortunate pileup of e-waste. But I already talked about that in a different video. So what is TPM 2.0? Well, TPM stands for Trusted Platform Module. So the chip, or crypto processor, as it likes to be called, is designed to provide hardware-based security functions such as storing cryptographic keys. Now, this is important. Now, these keys, they're unique to each chip. And once you create a Microsoft account during the Windows 11 out-of-box experience, or if you log in with an existing account, Bitlocker is activated by default and the encryption gets sent off to Microsoft. Now, what is Bitlocker? Well, Bitlocker is a encryptor. On paper, what's supposed to do is if someone were to, tamper with your computer, go into the BIOS or do anything, fishy, what it does is it encrypts the entire hard drive so that the attacker cannot get it. The problem with this is not opt-in. This is activated by default on your Windows 11, and most people are not even aware that this encryptor even exists or where the key is located. So say if the latest Windows update were to mess with your Windows/Linux dual boot and you had to disable the secure boot in your BIOS to get back into your system, Bitlocker kicks in and your Windows data is scrambled and you don't know what your key is. In fact, you don't even know that you had a key. You can call Microsoft, but if you don't give them the precise information that they're asking for, your drive is cooked. You might as well be told to format and start over, bitch. But wait, there's more. Because Microsoft has your keys in the cloud by default, they will, and they have, surrendered them to the FBI. So you can imagine the uproar and the privacy concerns that this is causing. Why Microsoft could access the keys, a rare notable disclosure. Like, this is... Apparently, in the past few years, they've had 20 requests per year, roughly that, for Bitlocker keys. And yeah, this is a grave concern. Now, Apple may have a monopoly on controlling your devices, your hardware, but not even Apple will go this far. And the cloud, the good old OneDrive, that's activated by default too. So if you're not paying attention to where you're saving your files, all the Microsoft servers has your data too. And heaven knows what they're doing with all that. Now, I know what I just said sounds like doom and gloom, and I'm sorry to say this, but this is a hill that Microslop apparently is willing to die on. So if you bought a new PC or a new laptop in the past few years that has Windows 11 on it, and you already went through the setup, creating a Microslop account or logging into one that exists, the BitLocker has been enabled, the key has been created, and Microslop has it. That being said, you can disable your BitLocker and you can remove the key from the Microslop account. It's out of the way, but that is by design because it's been buried into the setup process that they didn't even want you to be aware of this. So to disable the BitLocker, you will have to go into your settings, privacy and security, and switch off the device encryption. Now, I am told this can take a while depending how much data you have, but at least it's decrypted, it's yours, and at least you have no worries about it being tampered and being fried. I also don't have a Microslop account, but according to Google, if you go to account.microsoft.com/devices/recovery key and log in, make sure you're doing this on the computer that your account is on. And if you go to devices, you can delete the key so Microsoft doesn't have it anymore. And I always say this too, never use the cloud or the internet in general as a means of data storage. Always back up your data on external hard drives. It could be HDD, SSD, because as I always say, the cloud is just someone else's computer in a different location, thus has the potential to be compromised. So even if you do get BitLocked out of your computer, at least you know your data is safe and you know where to get it. But how can you avoid this to begin with? Well, last year, roughly around Windows 10 was nearing end of life, I did make a video talking about options, but I can go over them really briefly. Now, the first one is you can keep using Windows 10 with precautions. So make sure your antivirus is up to date, have your firewall turned on. You can use a VPN to encrypt your data while you're online. Make sure you don't open any links that you don't know what they are. After all, most malware viruses spread by user actions. One thing I do use though, that I didn't mention in the previous video, is Zero Patch. This is something that I'm using right now on my Windows drive. Now I'm using the free edition, which does provide some basic patches, security patches to Windows, but you can buy a year's worth, and they will provide you all of the patches that you would need for protection for Windows 10. Microsoft itself, if they're not going to provide them for you anyway, even though Windows 11 is shit, at least with Windows 10, you do have options to keep yourself safe. Two, you can switch to Linux. That is what I'm using. I'm on Linux Mint. If you're not using any software that requires Windows, like take Adobe for example, Linux will work for you just fine. If you're just a regular home user to watch videos, listen to music, Netflix, email, word processing, Linux has everything you need. In fact, gaming is either as good or better than Windows these days. I've been seeing a few tests ran online, and the frame rate with NVIDIA is actually getting better than Microslop. So it is a far cry from what Linux used to be. It is amazing. And all my machines, like Microslop, Windows is an endangered species in my home. I got 5 functioning machines, and only one of them has Windows 10, and is not even the primary drive. Linux is. So yeah, if a tech person like me can get by barely needing Windows anymore, a home user can get by just fine. Now, if you have to use Windows 11, it'd be best to install it from scratch using a custom ISO. And there's 2 ways to do this. One is with Rufus. You download the ISO from Microslop's website. You create a bootable USB with Rufus, and in the options, you can select it to, you can select it to use in the option here. There you go. You can disable data collection, so you can, you won't have to do that yourself once you're installed. And you can also allow it to remove the requirement to use an online Microslop account. So this would be the most user-friendly way of doing it. Now, you can also do it with Autounattend.XML files. This is a little more complex, but this would be the fail-safe way of creating a local account, because Microslop is constantly trying to patch newly discovered workarounds. Now, once again, the YouTuber Cyber CPU has made a comprehensive video on how to do this, because what you do is you essentially click whatever options you want the XML file to have. You then combine it with the ISO, put it onto a USB file, and basically, USB, drive. And it essentially does the entire install for you, removing the account requirement, disabling the telemetry, debloating, all that stuff. So Cyber CPU has a video. I'll have that, the link and this page in the description below, along with everything else I'm talking about in this video in the description below. And finally, of course, if you already have Windows 11, you have to protect yourself by disabling the telemetry, all the spying, and you can debloat it. So the tested, the tried and true ShutUp Windows 10++. This is the one I use right now on my Windows 10. It's very user-friendly. You download, you don't even install it. It's you can just put on a flash drive, put it in, put it into your C drive, open it up, and you just disable everything that you don't want. The primary ones you want to get rid of is all the telemetry and the automatic updates. Because Windows 11's updates are so broken and they're getting bigger in file size. So if you have a smaller, lighter computer, this is a real big issue. So that way, when you go look at the update history, if it has any problems, well, you know to avoid that update, or at least wait until that update is patched and repaired. There's another piece of software that O&O has. It's called O&O AppBuster. Now, I've used numerous different debooters. My favorite one is still Raven's Talon, but this one is far more user-friendly. It operates very much the same way as ShutUp Windows 10++. You open it up, and You just check off all of the apps that you don't want, and this software gets rid of it. And we're talking about the big stuff that you should not have. OneDrive, Copilot, even if you want to get rid of Edge, this software will do it, and safely. It is amazing. So this will make your computer run a lot smoother. So yes, that is my tech rant for today. Windows 11 sucks, and now we know why the market share is going up. So if you have Windows 10 and you don't want it to automatically install 11, make sure you use software like this to disable the automatic updates. And if you have to use Windows 11, create your own bootable drive to avoid making a Microslop account, because that's how they track you, especially with the Bitlocker. And check to see if your Bitlocker is turned on, because if it is, at minimum, find out what your encryption key is, because if anything happens and you don't have the key, your data is gone. Do not expect Microslop to help you. Your best bet would be to back up your data and just format a drive and start from scratch. So anyway, this is Chibi Neko saying the cloud is just someone else's computer, and support right to repair. See ya.